The children of Ardent Vale were laughing when the stars went silent. The colony was young, built on wide green plains under a calm blue sky. Schools were open, markets were full, and the last war felt very far away. Wrote, parents watched the sky only for weather, not danger. The defense grid was light, almost polite, because no one expected an attack here. This system was marked as civilian, protected by law, and known to every major power in the galaxy. The first sign was not fire or noise, it was quiet. The stars above the colony dimmed as long-range sensors went blind. Communication satellites stopped answering. Teachers paused mid-sentence, feeling something wrong without knowing why. Children looked up as the lights flickered. Somewhere beyond the sky, ships slipped into real space without warning. The strike came without mercy. Energy beams cut through school buildings, not by accident, but by design. Shelters collapsed before alarms could finish sounding. Hospitals lost power, then vanished in white light. Streets filled with smoke and screams. Parents ran toward schools that were already gone. Rescue teams were formed and erased in seconds. The attackers did not stay. They did not announce demands. They killed and left, as if proving a point. Across the system, emergency beacons screamed into the void. Most were cut off before finishing a sentence. A few made it through. Short messages, broken by static, carried the same words again and again. Children, schools, help. On Earth and across human space, operators froze as the feeds arrived. Some dropped to their knees. Others stared in silence as names and faces scrolled past, too fast to read. The attackers were known. An allied fleet under a regional power, backed quietly by several strong species. Their leader spoke later, calm and clean, calling it a warning strike. They said humanity was expanding too fast, ignoring balance. They said losses were unfortunate but necessary. On alien news channels, analysts debated strategy, while images of burning classrooms played in the background. No one called it murder. No one called it wrong. The Galactic Council convened within hours. The chamber was full, bright, and orderly. Human diplomats stood at their place and listened. Species after species spoke about stability and rules. They spoke about borders and fear. When the human delegate asked about the children, the chamber went quiet. A senior counselor answered with careful words, collateral damage. Tragic, but not illegal. The gavel struck. The session moved on. Humanity said nothing more. Across human space, fleets did not launch. Weapons did not fire. There were no speeches filled with anger. Instead, something older and deeper spread through the population. A cold focus. Families gathered and watched the footage together. They memorized faces. Names were read aloud. Schools lowered flags. Entire cities went silent for one full minute, then another, then another. The galaxy mistook that silence for weakness. In a small room beneath Earth's oldest city, human leaders met without cameras. Military officers, scientists, historians, and civilian voices sat together. No one argued. The evidence spoke for itself. Timelines were mapped. Attack vectors were studied. Political chains were drawn until the truth was clear. This was not a mistake. This was a message meant to frighten humanity into obedience. They decided the message would be answered. Human space began to change in ways outsiders could not see. Research stations reopened, files sealed for centuries. Shipyards worked without pause, not to build more ships, but better systems. Artificial minds ran simulations that lasted days and seconds. Every plan was tested, then broken, then rebuilt. The goal was not revenge. The goal was certainty. If humanity moved, it would not fail. While this happened, human diplomats quietly withdrew. Embassies closed. Trade slowed, then stopped. Cultural exchanges ended overnight. To the galaxy, it looked like retreat. Commentators spoke with confidence again. They said humans were emotional and fragile. They said the lesson had worked. Human space dimmed, not in defeat, but in preparation. On Ardent Vale, the fires burned out. Smoke drifted across empty fields. Rescue teams arrived too late to save most, but they searched anyway. They carried the small bodies with care. They recorded everything. Every mark, every angle, every signature left behind. A human medic found a child's recorder in the rubble of a school. The last entry was a shaky voice asking why the sky was angry. The file was saved and sent upward into the growing archive of human memory. Weeks passed, the galaxy relaxed. Then a military base on the edge of known space vanished. No explosion, no warning. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, cut clean from existence. Panic spread through command channels. Sensors showed nothing. Human space remained silent. Deep within that silence, humanity was awake. They remembered the children of Ardent Vale. They remembered the laughter before the stars went dark. And they made a promise that would soon echo across the galaxy, carried not by rage, but by resolve. The Galactic Council believed it was in control. The chamber filled again, brighter than before, calm voices layered over quiet fear. The disappearance of the military base was discussed as an anomaly. Some called it a reactor failure. Others suggested experimental weapons gone wrong. No one said the word humanity out loud, but everyone thought it. Human seats remained empty. Council members requested explanations through official channels. Messages were sent to human embassies that no longer existed. Automated replies returned, polite and blank, offering no answers. Trade partners complained as supply chains began to break. Human shipping lanes, once busy and open, now showed nothing but darkness. The galaxy told itself that this silence would pass. Then another installation failed. A logistics hub supporting 3 fleets shut down mid-cycle. Thousands of ships were left without fuel or orders. Crews panicked, commanders argued. Still no explosions, no debris fields, no clear enemy, only absence. At the next council session, patience thinned. Accusations began to surface. A minor power blamed the attackers of Ardent Vale, suggesting retaliation had finally come. That species denied it with visible fear. They reminded the council that humans had not declared war. They had not issued demands. They had done nothing that could be answered. The council asked a question no one liked. What if humanity was acting within the law? Records were reviewed. No treaties were broken by silence. No rule required a species to trade, speak, or forgive. The laws that protected civilians had been bent before, reworded, softened. The attack on human children had been judged acceptable by the same council, now feeling uneasy. The chamber grew quiet again, but this time the silence was not controlled. On human worlds, the mood was different. Life continued, but it was sharper, more focused. Schools reopened with stronger shields. Children were escorted by quiet guardians with watchful eyes. Every human understood the line that had been crossed. It was in their history, written in wars they never forgot. A human analyst watched alien broadcasts without blinking. He noted the patterns of fear, the sudden changes in language. Words like stability were being replaced with concern. Balance was replaced with dialogue. He forwarded his findings to a secure network. The response came back simple and cold. Not yet. The species responsible for the Ardent Vale strike began to feel pressure. Their allies distanced themselves. Supply contracts were delayed. Their fleets were asked to stay within home space for safety. Their leaders denied any connection to the vanished bases, but their voices shook. They had expected human anger, loud and fast. They had prepared for protests, maybe skirmishes. They had not prepared for this slow tightening of the dark. A probe sent into human border space did not return. A second came back empty, its memory wiped clean. Engineers found one file burned into its core, repeated again and again until nothing else remained. A list of names. Children's names. Thousands of them. No demands followed. The message was complete on its own. The council finally voted to summon humanity formally. Emergency powers were used. Secure channel was opened, backed by every major species. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a single human figure appeared on the central display. No uniform markings, no rank symbols, just a calm face and steady eyes. The council spoke first. They asked for explanations. They asked for restraint. They spoke of consequences. The human representative listened without interrupting. When the council finished, the human spoke in simple words. You judged the murder of our children and found it acceptable. We have reviewed your judgment, that was all. The channel closed. Across the galaxy, fear took root. Military planners ran scenarios that ended the same way, with empty maps and unanswered commands. Economists watched markets fall as human systems remained closed. Cultural leaders tried to calm their people, but rumors moved faster than truth. The phrase human silence spread like a warning. On Ardent Vale, a memorial was finished. Stone markers stood where schools once did. Parents gathered and placed small lights at the base of each name. Above them, the stars shone again, but no one trusted their beauty anymore. A human officer watched from a distance, recording nothing. Some moments did not need archives. They lived inside those who survived. In a hidden facility, far from any star, a human strategist reviewed the next phase. The galaxy had made its judgment. It would learn the cost of it, not through chaos, but through order, imposed by those who understood patience better than any council ever had. Humanity was not angry anymore. Anger burned fast and died. What remained was resolve, cold and endless. The galaxy had believed it could harm the weakest humans and face no response. It had mistaken kindness for fragility. The judgment phase was over. Human space looked quiet from the outside, but inside it moved with purpose. Beneath cities, beneath oceans, beneath mountains older than memory, humanity worked. There were no banners, no speeches, no public calls for unity. None were needed. The silence itself was the signal. In a deep orbital station hidden between folded layers of space, human leaders gathered again. The room was simple, built for function, not comfort. Faces showed no anger now, only focus. A large display showed the galaxy as a living map, lines of trade, power, and fear shifting with every hour. Red zones marked where installations had vanished. Blue lines showed where human influence had quietly withdrawn, leaving gaps that were beginning to hurt. A historian spoke first. He reminded them that this was not the first time humanity had been judged unworthy of protection. Long before the stars, humans had learned that survival favored those who planned beyond emotion. They did not win by striking first. They won by choosing when the lesson would be impossible to ignore. Scientists followed, explained systems never shared with the galaxy. Weapons that did not burn worlds, but removed them from relevance. Algorithms designed not to kill, but to isolate, blind, and unravel entire command structures. Human war had evolved past noise and fire. It had become quiet, exact, and deeply unfair to those who underestimated it. Military planners showed footage from the vanished bases. Not destruction, but absence. Structures removed molecule by molecule. Energy fields folded inward until nothing remained. No debris meant no evidence. No funerals, no heroes, just loss. They explained why civilians had been spared. Humanity wanted the galaxy to understand something important. This was not rage, this was control. On Earth, families lived their lives under watchful skies. Children learned drills that felt like games. Shelters were rebuilt as libraries and parks, strong enough to withstand stars falling. Parents smiled more tightly, but they smiled. Fear was not allowed to own the future. That was another human rule. In a secure archive, analysts reviewed every message sent from alien space since the council session. Words were weighed, pauses measured, fear had a rhythm, and the galaxy was beginning to move to it. Allies of the attackers were pulling back. Smaller powers were scrambling to signal innocence. No one wanted to be next, and no one knew how to stop what they could not see. The species responsible for Ardent Vale met in secret. Their leaders argued loudly, then quietly. Some wanted to confess, to beg, to offer compensation. Others wanted to strike back, believing humans were bluffing. A fleet was prepared as a show of strength. It never launched. The navigation system failed across every ship at once. No error logs, no external signal, just darkness on the screens and silence on the bridge.
Thanks, Brad.
The galaxy began to understand a terrifying truth. Humanity was not reacting to events anymore. Humanity was shaping them. Inside the human network, a simple directive passed from node to node: protect the future. Everything else was secondary. That directive guided every action. It was why no civilian targets were touched. It was why data strikes replaced bombardment. It was why the attackers were being isolated instead of destroyed. Humanity wanted witnesses. Memory mattered. A young human officer reviewed a list of names late into the night. Each name belonged to a child lost on Ardent Vale and other colonies attacked in smaller, forgotten incidents over the years. Patterns emerged. The same powers, the same excuses, the same votes in council chambers. She added annotations, not for vengeance, but for clarity. This was not about one crime. It was about a habit the galaxy had formed. The next phase began quietly. Across multiple sectors, financial systems froze, not collapsed, just paused. Credits could not move. Resources could not be bought. Entire fleets found themselves unable to pay crews or maintain ships. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Governments blamed hackers, then storms, then each other. No one blamed humanity publicly, but every private channel whispered the same fear. Humanity remained silent. On Ardent Vale, the memorial lights were replaced with small trees, each grown from Earth's soil. Children from other colonies came to help plant them. They were taught why the trees mattered, not as symbols of loss, but of responsibility. The galaxy had failed them once. Humanity would not fail them again. A message finally came from the attacker's homeworld. It was desperate and unpolished, sent through multiple channels at once. They asked what humanity wanted. They offered apologies, reparations, even territory. The message was received, archived, and ignored. In the hidden station, a strategist nodded as the report came in. The silence was working. The galaxy was used to negotiation, to loud threats and fast deals. It did not know how to face an enemy that refused to speak until the lesson was ready. Human intelligence units confirmed the final condition. The council was fracturing. Trust was eroding. Laws once bent against humanity were now being questioned by those who feared becoming the next exception. The system was unstable. That was when humanity prepared to speak again. Not with words, but with proof. The strategist looked at the map one last time and authorized the next action. Single target, symbolic, central, impossible to ignore. The galaxy would soon learn that human silence was not emptiness. It was pressure. It was about to break something the galaxy believed was untouchable. The strike did not begin with fire. It began with a routine meeting. At the heart of the Galactic Council's power sat a massive logistics nexus, a structure older than most empires. It did not command fleets directly, but it fed them. Data, fuel schedules, authorization codes, and supply priorities all passed through it. Every major military in known space depended on it. The Council believed it was untouchable, protected by treaties, defenses, and tradition. Humanity chose it for that reason. On the day of the strike, traffic around the Nexus was heavy. Couriers arrived and departed. Military updates flowed in steady streams. Council officials debated budgets and patrol routes, unaware that something invisible had already entered the system. It did not trip alarms. It did not force entry. It had been invited, disguised as routine maintenance code approved years earlier. When humans were still considered harmless partners, deep within the Nexus, systems began to change their priorities. No one noticed at first. A shipment was delayed. A data packet arrived out of order. Minor issues, easily blamed on congestion. Operators adjusted schedules and moved on. Then the lights dimmed. Not fully. Just enough to draw attention. Backup systems activated, but they too began to lag. Screens refreshed slowly. Commands took longer to process. A senior technician ordered a full diagnostic. The request never reached the core. Across the galaxy, fleets waiting for new orders felt the first shock. Navigation updates failed to arrive. Fuel allocations were flagged for review. Automated systems locked access, citing conflicting authority. Commanders shouted, engineers swore. Still, no alarms declared an attack. According to the rules, nothing illegal was happening. Inside the Nexus, the core finally responded. Every display in the station changed at once. The council seal vanished, replaced by a simple human symbol. Beneath it appeared a list. Names scrolled slowly one by one, thousands of them. Each name was followed by a date and a place. Schools, shelters, hospitals. The scrolling stopped on one final line. Ardent Vale. Then the Nexus shut down. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone from the network. Physically it remained, but it could no longer send or receive data. Every system linked to it lost synchronization. Fleets across dozens of sectors were suddenly blind and leaderless. Supply chains froze mid-motion. Defense grids switched to passive mode, unable to confirm threats. Panic exploded. Emergency sessions were called that could not connect. Backup channels failed. Even ancient analog systems produced conflicting results. The galaxy had built itself on interconnection, and humanity had pulled one silent thread. Within hours, alien news channels dropped all programming. Analysts struggled to explain what was happening. Some blamed sabotage, others whispered the word war. No one could explain how a single species had reached so deeply without firing a shot. Then humanity spoke again. A broadcast appeared across every open frequency, simple and clear. The same calm human voice from before. No anger. No threats. This is a warning strike. You judged the murder of our children and found it acceptable. We have removed nothing you cannot live without. We have destroyed nothing you cannot rebuild. This was done to show you what we can touch. The broadcast ended. Fear spread faster than any fleet ever had. Military leaders demanded retaliation. They argued that such power could not go unanswered. But no target could be identified. Human fleets were nowhere near the Nexus. Sensors showed no unusual energy signatures. Even if they wanted to strike back, they had no one to strike. Behind closed doors, council members finally began to break. Some admitted what they had done was wrong. Others tried to shift blame. The species responsible for Ardent Vale denied direct involvement again, but their voices were thin. Their home systems were already feeling pressure. Trade had collapsed. Allies refused contact. Their once proud fleet sat idle, waiting for orders that never came. On human worlds, the response was quiet. Public was informed that a warning had been delivered. No details were shared. There were no celebrations, no cheers. Families watched the stars and held their children a little closer. Humanity was not enjoying this. It was enduring it. In the hidden stations, planners reviewed the results. The strike had gone exactly as designed. Zero civilian impact. Maximum systemic shock. The galaxy now understood that human reach extended into places once thought sacred. But the lesson was not finished. A secondary effect began to unfold. With the Nexus offline, old grudges resurfaced. Fleets accused each other of manipulation. Border skirmishes flared, then died as commanders realized they could not sustain conflict without supplies. The Council's authority weakened by the hour. Human analysts watched calmly. This, too, was part of the design. Humanity did not need to rule the galaxy. It only needed the galaxy to fear crossing certain lines. A final message arrived from the attackers' leadership. This time it was not sent to humanity alone. It was broadcast publicly. They denied responsibility again, but offered to cooperate fully with any investigation. They called for peace. They asked the Council to restore order. Humanity answered by releasing evidence. Sensor logs, command authorizations, payment transfers. Clear proof that the strike on Ardent Vale had been planned, approved, and celebrated internally. The files spread across the galaxy in minutes. The attackers' allies withdrew support instantly. Some closed their borders. Others issued arrest warrants of their own, desperate to distance themselves. The galaxy watched as a once-respected power began to fall apart under the weight of truth. The warning strike was complete. Humanity had shown that it could reach into the heart of galactic order and stop it from beating. It had done so without blood, without noise, and without apology. The message was clear now, even to the slowest minds among the stars. The silence was over. The lesson had begun. The Galactic Council had never begged before. It had demanded, negotiated, threatened, and punished, but it had never asked from a place of fear. Now its chamber felt smaller. The bright lights no longer hid the cracks forming beneath polished stone and old confidence. Emergency beacons called every member back. Not all answered. Some governments were too busy holding themselves together. Others feared being seen too close to the council that had failed so badly. Still, enough arrived to fill the seats and pretend authority still lived there. The first words spoken were not formal. They were panicked. Systems were failing faster than predicted. Fleets were stranded. Food shipments were delayed. The council had power only because the galaxy believed in it. That belief was draining away by the hour. They agreed on one thing: humanity had to be brought back to the table. A request was sent, then another. This time the language was careful, respectful. They spoke of misunderstanding, regret, of the need to restore balance before everything collapsed. They avoided mentioning children. They still hoped to control the shape of the story. The response came quickly. A human delegation appeared in the chamber. Not one figure, but several. Civilian leaders, military officers, scientists. A historian stood among them. They wore no armor, no symbols of rank meant to intimidate. They did not need them. The council tried to speak first. Humanity did not allow it. The human historian stepped forward. His voice was calm, but it carried across the chamber without effort. He did not accuse. He recited dates, votes, decisions. Each time the council had excused civilian deaths in the name of order. Each time children were mentioned only as numbers. The record was perfect. The galaxy's own laws spoken back to it without emotion. Screens around the chamber activated. Footage played. Not edited. Not shortened. Classrooms, shelters, parents running through smoke. The sounds were not muted. Several council members looked away. Some did not. When the footage ended, the silence was unbearable. The historian spoke again. He explained that humanity had asked for nothing special when it joined the galaxy, only that the same laws apply to all. Those laws had failed, not by accident but by choice. The council had chosen convenience over protection. The council leader tried to respond. He spoke of stability, of how hard it was to govern so many species. The human historian listened politely, then shook his head. You governed power, not responsibility. That broke something in the room. Voices rose. Accusations flew. Some council members blamed the attackers. Others blamed humanity for overreacting. The unity they had relied on shattered in real time. Humanity watched without interrupting. Then the human military officer stepped forward. He spoke simply. Humanity had no desire to rule the council. It did not want seats, votes, or titles. It wanted one thing only, a line that could never be crossed again. Children were not leverage. Civilian worlds were not messages. Any species that violated that rule would face consequences without delay, negotiation, or mercy. The council asked what those consequences would be. The officer answered honestly. It would depend on what humanity needed to remove to make the threat end. That answer terrified them more than any weapon display. Behind the scenes, human systems continued their work. Trade restrictions tightened around the guilty powers. Data access narrowed. Tire industries stalled. No one starved. No cities burned. But pressure built everywhere at once, like deep water closing in. Smaller species began to speak out. They had followed council rulings for generations. They had trusted the system to protect them. Now they realized it never truly had. Petitions flooded the chamber. Demands for reform replaced calls for calm. The council tried to regain control by proposing investigations and committees. Humanity rejected them. Investigations could be delayed. Committees could be buried. Humanity had learned that time favored those who already held power. Instead, humanity proposed something radical. All records of civilian-targeted strikes would be made public across all species, without exception. No redactions. No classified seals. Truth would no longer be managed. The council resisted. Too many secrets would surface. Too many respected leaders would fall. The human delegation stood firm. This was not a negotiation. This was the cost of restoring trust. As debate raged, a new report arrived. One of the attackers' core worlds had entered full civil unrest. Citizens had seen the evidence. They had learned what had been done in their name. Protests filled the streets. Military units refused orders. The ruling council of that species had gone silent. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had planned. The council leader finally spoke the words no one expected. He asked humanity how to stop the collapse. Human scientist answered. By accepting it. She explained that the current order was built on selective enforcement and quiet cruelty. It could not be saved without repeating the same crimes. Humanity was not here to preserve a broken system. It was here to ensure a better one could exist afterward. That was when the council truly begged. They asked humanity to pause its pressure, to give them time, to allow them to rebuild authority. They promised reforms, protections, New laws written in clear language. Humanity agreed to one thing only. The pressure would slow, not stop. The galaxy would feel every moment of its own decisions. Learning required memory, and memory required consequence. The delegation stood to leave. Before they vanished from the chamber, the human historian turned back. "We are not your enemies," he said, "but we are no longer your excuse." The feed ended. Across the galaxy, leaders sat in silence. Realizing that control had slipped from their hands not through force but through truth, humanity had not shattered the council. It had simply removed the lies holding it together. And in the quiet that followed, a new fear spread among those truly responsible. Because humanity had not yet delivered justice. It had only removed protection. What came next would not involve councils at all. The galaxy began to understand that humanity's greatest weapon was not destruction, it was removal. At first it felt small, a trade permit delayed here, a data license quietly revoked there. Individual systems reported problems that could not be traced to any attack. The council tried to reassure everyone that this was temporary, that order would return. But the galaxy had been built like a single machine, and humanity knew exactly which pieces to lift away. Human coordination spread like a shadow with intent. Entire shipping routes became unreliable. Not blocked, not destroyed, just inefficient. Human-owned navigation relays began prioritizing safety protocols so strict that most foreign ships could not meet them. Insurance networks, many of them human-designed long ago, reclassified risk across dozens of sectors. Premiums exploded overnight. Fleets that once ruled space found themselves grounded by paperwork and numbers. No shot was fired. The species responsible for Ardent Vale felt it most. Their economy, once strong, depended on access to shared systems. One by one, those systems became unavailable. Banking nodes returned errors. Manufacturing A's required updates that never came. Even internal communications slowed, as if the air itself resisted their words. Their leaders demanded answers from the council. The council had none. Human analysts watched everything in real time. They did not celebrate, they measured. Every reaction was logged. Every failure studied. Humanity was not improvising. This had been planned long before the first warning strike, modeled again and again until outcomes were certain. On human worlds, life continued with quiet discipline. Schools taught history alongside mathematics. Children learned why laws mattered and why some lines could never be crossed. They were told the truth in simple words. Not to scare them, but to arm them with understanding. Fear faded. Pride did not replace it. Responsibility did. The galaxy tried to push back. A coalition fleet assembled near a neutral border, claiming it was only an exercise. Human sensors tracked it from the moment it formed. No response came. The fleet advanced anyway, testing limits. As it crossed an invisible line, every ship lost synchronization at once. No damage, no explosion. Engines still worked, but navigation drifted. Timestamps disagreed. Orders arrived out of sequence. Commanders panicked. Humanity sent a single message, routed through civilian channels so it could not be framed as a threat. Turn back. This is not a battlefield. The fleet turned back. That moment changed everything. For the first time in known history, a major military force had obeyed a warning without understanding the weapon behind it. Fear of the unknown had outweighed pride. Smaller species began to reach out to humanity directly. Not for protection, but for guidance. They asked how to avoid becoming part of the problem. Humanity answered carefully. Follow the rule. Protect civilians, especially children. Everything else was secondary. This clarity spread faster than council decrees ever had. Inside the attacker's territory, pressure became unbearable. Citizens could no longer ignore the truth. The evidence humanity had released was everywhere. Parents saw faces that could have been their own children. Soldiers questioned orders given by leaders who had lied to them. Entire cities protested, not against humanity, but against their own rulers. The ruling council of that species fractured. Some members fled. Others were arrested by their own security forces. Few tried to rally support by calling humanity a tyrant. The message failed. Too many had already seen the truth. Humanity watched, but did not intervene. Justice, they believed, was stronger when it came from within. Behind the scenes, a different kind of power moved. Human data architects quietly rewrote how information flowed through the galaxy, not censoring, not controlling, but balancing. Lies no longer traveled faster than facts. Manipulated footage, failed verification checks, old propaganda systems collapsed under new transparency standards humanity had once suggested and the Council had ignored. Now, those standards were unavoidable. The Council attempted to reclaim authority by announcing sweeping reforms, new protections, new oversight bodies. Humanity acknowledged the effort, but did not slow its actions. Trust was not restored by promises, it's only by time and proof. In the hidden station, strategists reviewed the final stage. The attackers' leadership had been identified. Every individual who had approved, ordered, or celebrated the strike on children was accounted for. Their assets were frozen, their movements tracked, their allies gone. The galaxy expected executions. It expected annihilation. That was how power had always worked. Humanity chose something else. A secure broadcast was prepared. It would be impossible to block, impossible to deny. It would not come from the Council or any military channel. It would come from the shared civilian network every species relied on. The message was simple. Formal announcement of trials, open trials, public records, witnesses from every species. The accused would speak for themselves. Evidence would be shown again and again until no one could claim ignorance. Some human commanders questioned the choice. Trials took time. They carried risk. Humanity's leaders answered with history. Power without memory always repeated its crimes. This was not about ending one threat. It was about ending a pattern. When the announcement spread, the galaxy reacted with shock. Trials were messy. They exposed more than weapons ever could. They forced societies to look at themselves. The attackers' remaining leaders tried to escape. Human systems quietly closed every path. They did not chase. They waited. There was nowhere left to go. On Ardent Vale, the trees planted at the memorial began to grow. Children from other colonies returned to play among them. Laughter returned, careful at first, then free. Human observers watched and said nothing. This was the purpose, not dominance, not revenge. Protection. The galaxy had learned that humanity's true power was not rage, not weapons, not even silence. It was coordination guided by memory. That power was not finished teaching. The trials were coming. And with them, a reckoning the galaxy could not vote away. The trials began without ceremony. No grand chamber. No raised platform. Just a wide neutral space built from shared technology, located far from any homeworld. Every species was invited to observe. No one was allowed to control the rules. Humanity insisted on that. The accused arrived under guard, not bound by chains, but by certainty. They were leaders, admirals, counselors, and strategists who had once spoken with confidence about balance and necessity. Now they stood in silence as records followed them like shadows. The galaxy watched, unable to look away. The first witness was not human. A small alien medic stepped forward, hands shaking. She spoke of a shelter she had tried to evacuate during the Ardent Vale strike. She described children crushed by falling stone, air burning their lungs. Voices calling for parents who would never answer. She had survived because she was pulled into a maintenance shaft by a human engineer who died sealing the door behind her. The chamber stayed silent as she finished. Then the recordings played. Unedited command logs, clear orders, no confusion, no panic.
Oh.
The strike had been approved with calm language and neat signatures. One of the accused tried to speak, but the record continued. Laughter followed one confirmation message. Someone had joked about soft targets. That moment broke something across the galaxy. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds at once. Citizens flooded public squares, demanding answers from their own governments. Some leaders tried to distance themselves, claiming ignorance. Humanity released more records. Funding approvals, quiet votes, private messages expressing relief that the humans finally learned restraint. The truth spread, faster than control ever had. Inside the trial chamber, the accused began to fracture. One tried to justify the attack as deterrence. Another blamed political pressure. A third claimed the children were never the target. Humanity responded not with argument, but with timelines. Sensor overlays showed precision. Strike pads aligned exactly with schools and shelters. There was no room left to hide. A human child was called as a witness. She was older than the victims, but not by much. She spoke slowly, choosing simple words. She described learning drills after Ardent Vale, how her class practiced running without screaming, how her little brother asked why aliens hated kids. She said she did not hate anyone. She just wanted the galaxy to promise it would not happen again. That was when several observers began to cry. The accused realized too late that this was not a trial meant to punish alone. It was meant to teach. Every moment was being recorded, translated, archived. Future leaders would study this. Children across species would learn it in schools. Humanity was not ending a war. It was writing a rule into history. Outside the chamber, pressure continued to build. Economies that had supported the attackers collapsed fully. Their fleets were decommissioned by their own crews. Allies issued formal apologies, some sincere, some desperate. Humanity accepted none yet. Apologies were words. It required change. The Council attempted to intervene, citing concerns about stability. Humanity ignored them. The Council had lost its authority the moment it chose convenience over children. This process did not require permission. As the trials continued, a new threat emerged. A radical faction within one of the collapsing powers seized control of a hidden weapons platform. They broadcast a threat across open channels, accusing humanity of humiliation and promising retaliation. The galaxy held its breath, expecting destruction. Humanity responded in less than a second. The platform vanished. Not exploded, not disabled. Simply gone. Sensors showed empty space where it had been. The message was clear and terrifying. Even now, even during judgment, humanity was watching everything. The trials resumed without pause. Sentences were passed, but not as executions. Those found responsible were removed from all positions, stripped of influence, and placed into permanent isolation facilities maintained by multiple species. No escape, no martyrdom. They would live long lives knowing exactly why they were there. While the galaxy remembered their names for the right reasons. Some called it cruel, others called it merciful. Humanity called it sufficient. As the final verdicts were read, a human representative addressed the observers. She spoke plainly. Humanity did not enjoy this. It would have preferred never to need it, but the galaxy had taught humans a lesson long ago. If rules could be bent once, they would be bent again, unless someone refused to forget. She explained what would happen next. A new standard would exist. Any verified attack on children or civilian shelters would trigger immediate coordinated response, not debate, not delay. Humanity would not ask permission. This was not dominance. It was defense of the future. Some species feared this power. Others felt relief. On Ardent Vale, the trees were taller now. Leaves moved gently in the wind. Children ran between them, laughing again without fear. Parents watched the sky and felt something they had not felt since the attack. Trust. The trials ended, but the reckoning did not. Across the galaxy, laws were rewritten. Military doctrines changed. Training simulations removed civilian targets entirely. Species that once mocked human emotion now studied it. Realizing too late that empathy had been a form of intelligence they had never mastered. Humanity did not celebrate its victory. It marked the day quietly. Names were read again. Lights were placed at memorials. Then life moved forward. But the galaxy was no longer the same. It had learned that humanity's true strength was not in how hard it could strike, but in how carefully it chose when to stop. And in that understanding, a final realization spread among the stars. Humanity had not punished the galaxy. It had corrected it. What remained was the future. Humanity was watching it closely. Years passed, and the galaxy learned how to live with memory. The changes did not arrive all at once. They settled slowly, like gravity, reshaping behavior without asking permission. Military academies rewrote their core texts. Simulations that once treated civilian zones as acceptable losses were erased. New officers were taught a simple rule before anything else. If children were in the area, the mission was already a failure. The old Galactic Council still existed, but it was smaller, quieter, and watched closely. Its chambers were no longer places where power hid behind language. Every vote was recorded and made public. Every decision carried names, not titles. Species that once ruled by influence alone found that influence now required trust. Humanity never claimed leadership. That frightened the galaxy more than if it had. Human fleets were rarely seen, but their presence was felt everywhere, not as patrols, but as systems. Safeguards embedded deep into shared infrastructure. Warning protocols that activated before violence escalated. Early detection nets that prioritized civilian risk above military advantage. Humanity had woven protection into the galaxy's bones. Some called it control. Humanity corrected them. It was insurance. On worlds once hostile to humans, attitudes shifted with time. Children grew up learning about Ardent Vale and their own languages, not as propaganda, but as history. Teachers explained what happened when laws were bent and excuses accepted. The lesson was not about humans, it was about responsibility. Many species struggled with that lesson. Few tried to test it. A pirate coalition attacked a remote settlement, believing it small enough to escape notice. Within minutes, their ships lost navigation. Within hours, every port refused them entry. Within a day, they surrendered to local authorities without a single human ship appearing. The response had been automatic, quiet, and total. The galaxy understood then. Humanity did not need to be present. Its systems already were. On Earth, life moved forward with deliberate care. Cities expanded, colonies grew again, but with stronger foundations. Every new human settlement was built with layered protection, not only physical, but legal and informational. Humanity had learned that survival among the stars required more than strength. It required foresight. As children played under open skies once more, they knew what had happened, but they were not defined by it. Humanity refused to let trauma become identity. Memory was preserved, not worshipped. The past was a guide, not a chain. On Ardent Vale, the memorial forest stood tall. The trees were strong now, roots deep in the soil of a world that had endured. At the center stood a simple stone marker, not listing names this time, but a promise written in clear, basic words. Never again. Not here. Not anywhere. Visitors from other species came often, some out of respect, some out of curiosity. Many brought their children, walked among the trees quietly, reading the records available at the site. No one was rushed. No one was forced to feel anything. Understanding came naturally. One day, a delegation arrived from a species that had once voted in favor of excusing civilian losses. Their leader stood before the marker and spoke openly. He admitted his failure. He said his people had believed power meant survival. Humanity had shown them that power without restraint only delayed collapse. Humanity accepted the apology, not because it was needed, but because it was honest. The galaxy noticed that difference. Humanity did not seek endless punishment. It sought correction, then closure. That balance was unfamiliar to many, but it worked. Conflicts still happened. Disputes still rose. But they ended sooner now, checked by systems and norms that made cruelty expensive and accountability unavoidable. In time, a new phrase entered common use across species. Human line. It described a boundary no one dared cross. It was not written into every law, but everyone understood it. Harmed children and humanity would act. Not loudly, not immediately visible, but completely. Some feared this power. Others felt safer than they ever had. Human leaders met less often now. Emergency councils were rare. When they did gather, it was usually to dismantle another contingency that was no longer needed. Humanity did not enjoy vigilance. It simply refused complacency. A human child once asked why the galaxy listened now. Her teacher answered honestly, because we proved we would remember. That was humanity's true power. Not the ability to destroy worlds, but the refusal to forget why they should not. Far beyond the old borders, new species watched humanity from a distance. They studied its history carefully. They noticed something important. Humans did not expand by conquest. They expanded by example. Worlds asked to join human-aligned systems voluntarily, drawn by stability and fairness rather than force. Humanity did not rush to accept them. Trust, once broken, was rebuilt slowly. On a quiet night on Ardent Vale, an older human stood at the edge of the forest. He had been there on the day the stars went silent, watched children run between the trees, their laughter carrying into the dark. The stars above were bright, steady, and unafraid. The galaxy had learned many lessons since that day. But the most important one was simple. Humanity would not rule the stars. It would guard the future. Any galaxy that wished to survive would learn to do the same.